everyone, and welcome to week 7. I hope you had a great Thanksgiving and were able to either spend time with family or just spend time alone and relax. I know for me, it was nice just to take a few days off the grid. And that being said, you probably have noticed I'm about halfway through grading your crisis responses, and then I'll get to the discussion questions. But I'll be really honest, between traveling and then putting up a Christmas tree and doing all of the things, I got tiny behind. So also, please let me know if anything. I know these last 2 weeks of the semester are crazy. So the only sort of thing on my end is 1 week after the last day of class, I believe grades, I'll have to submit final grades. But if you need any extensions in the meantime, just let me know, because I do not want to ask anything of you that I can't uphold myself. So this week I think is just a really interesting week. I don't know how many of you, I know our programs change in terms of, we used to have a very prescribed order of classes, but often if you're the initial 6 ethics, I believe everyone has to take ethics to graduate. So as you know, if you've taken that, but just in general, ethics is so important, particularly when it comes to communication, because there's so many questions about disclosure of information, honesty of information, protecting people's rights, all sorts of things. And I just think it's always just kind of interesting. And again, as I think has been a theme throughout this class, unethical behavior, actions, communication can lead to a crisis. But then there's also, from the flip side, we need to think about, as we're responding to a crisis, are we doing so in an ethical manner? And so when I was kind of thinking about, okay, what are some examples of recently of things that maybe involved ethics, I thought of, and I think this is a great example of ethics all around, Operation Varsity Blues, or the college admission scandal. If you have not watched the documentary on Netflix called Operation Varsity Blues, it's really, really interesting. And actually, I'm reading a fictional book right now called Girls with Bright Futures about, an elite private school and the lengths the parents are going to get their children into Stanford, And so just very, very interesting. So as you can see, Lori McLaughlin, and Felicity Huffman were 2 of the really high-profile celebrities that had used this college consultant. And the more that came out, not only were they faking resumes and doctoring things, but they were actually paying off coaches at some of these elite institutions to label these students as recruits, which increased the likelihood that they would be admitted. And oftentimes they were being recruited for sports that they never actually participated in. All sorts of things, kind of runs the gamut. So obviously this caused a huge splash, particularly because these famous people were involved, and it led to a lot of questions. One of them being, these women are so rich, couldn't they have, the big thing was like, couldn't they have just donated a couple million and built a building? And I don't know if both their children want to go to USC, but so this whole thing then kind of blew up, and it just involves so many people. So some of the ethical questions that we would want to think about as communication professionals was, first of all, ethical actions of those who participate in the scam. So these were the parents, the college consultant. It looked like a lot of it involved coaches. And from the digging around I did in the documentary, I don't think they ever were able to directly name like any admissions officials, but again, kind of all these things. So this is like just the unethical behavior of lying and buying your way into college, right? Particularly super competitive colleges. But then as we're thinking about continuing with the ethics, we have to think about the response. And there's a response from a lot of parties. Well, so first of all, we're the participants in the scandal. And so the parents, how are they going to respond? And again, remember, these were very, very wealthy, well-to-do individuals, and it made the news. So how are they going to respond? Then also, I didn't put this, but like any university staff that were directly involved, such as coaches, but then university officials, so how are they going to respond knowing that this happened? And how are they going to craft a response? And so in thinking about it, what are the ethical issues? Again, those primary things. How much of the truth are you going to disclose? From the university standpoint, protecting perhaps the identity of students who oftentimes, and I was reading about this, I think the federal indictment indicted 50 parents, like 50 separate families. Many of their children had no idea this was going on. Some did, just because of some of the things they had to do, but maybe didn't know the full extent. So all of a sudden, students were being expelled from universities or denied admissions based on what their parents had done, and did they not know? Do we disclose those children's names? Potentially some of them, if they had just been applying, were minors, and then just brought up also the broader issue of the fairness of college admissions. So many questions, and just swirling around. And working at Purdue, it's been really interesting to listen to discussions about the undergraduate admissions as we continue to have these really huge, robust incoming student classes, but things like, should we use SAT scores? Should we use ACT scores? What about the inherent biases? Is GPA a really good indicator? How do you really tell? So again, so that was the participants, and then the universities, and then thinking about those students who were involved and what's going to happen to them. And just the ethics of, too, at what point does a university have to take responsibility when an employee engages in wrongdoing, right? So it's, in college sports a lot, you'll see coaches get fired and they say they had no idea that, say, players are being played off or things were happening, but there was lack of institutional oversight, right? So at the end of the day, who's ultimately responsible for what is happening? And then the other thing, again, going back to these students and families, and I was reading this article, it was really interesting about some of these children, how they were mocked on social media, and really felt like they were painted in this way. And so the other thing is, as we're casting blame and aspersions as an institution who can say this is totally wrong, do we have any obligation to protect the participants from potential harm, and particularly the participants who maybe themselves were not directly involved? So just a lot of ethical questions. And it was interesting to read the response. I found this really good article. Let's see if I can pull it on. Not that one. This is not going to work. Let me go back to my slides, which are here. So here, the universities that were named in the indictment involved, UT Austin, USC, Wake Forest, Yale, UCLA, University of San Diego, Georgetown, right? So these really kind of big name schools. And how did they respond? So this article talked about the responses. Some of them immediately fired any coaches involved. Other ones talked about putting greater regulations in place. Some universities, called for maybe a reform or evaluation of how admissions worked in terms of what they were reviewing. A lot of distancing from, say, the coaches and those kind of things. So just a really interesting thing to think about when you think about the ethical situation that all of these people were put in. So the other thing I want to talk about, so this week you'll have a discussion question, and then you'll have your video presentation. Just so you know, the way I look at these video presentations is very much like, if we were in class together, I would ask you to take 5 minutes and kind of tell us about your case study and what you learned and what the implications. So it does not have to be super formal. You can have slides, you cannot have slides. You can be on camera, you cannot be on camera. That's kind of your choice. Now, I did get a couple of people reach out who were unsure how exactly to record. So I wanted to show you two options. So the tool that I use, and if you've seen the last couple of weeks, I've had to switch things around because of my computer. But I use what is called, where'd it go? Nope, not that. Exit. My controller. I guess I can move that. Sorry. Screencast-O-Matic. So, as you can see, there I am. I hate looking at my still shots, but this is a completely free program. Now, you can pay, and I do pay for upgraded subscription just because I use it for a lot of different things, and I think it's $10 a year, but the free one would work for all of your needs actually for this entire program. And it basically, what it would do is you launch the recorder and you have the option of recording like slides with small yourself. Here, I think I didn't have slides this week. And then you can actually do completely just slides, and you can have your voice, and it can capture like if you're moving your mouse or something. So lots of options, and it does give you some editing options. The other thing that's nice is once you're done, you can store it kind of in your free Screencast-O-Matic, or you can upload it directly to YouTube. So that's one option that I really like. The other one, if you just want to use a Purdue tool, if you go to Purdue Media Space, all of you have an account as a graduate student, I believe. And if I'm wrong, let me know. But last time I checked, I believe this was true. So if I want to record, it has kind of the same capabilities. It does look a little different, like the 1 week where you could see the slides on one screen and me in the other screen. The other thing is, as you're recording, you cannot see yourself. So as I'm recording now, I can see myself in the little camera, which actually I think sometimes is a detriment because I tend to look at that instead of my actual camera. But if you go up here to add new, you have two options. There's Express Capture and Kaltura Capture. I've always just used Kaltura. And you will just kind of like you to launch it if you don't have it. So you would download it. It's just a little like application, very safe, Purdue. And then basically it's going to do the same thing, allow you to share your screen and press record. That will automatically get uploaded into your Media Space account. So if you go over here and see my media, see if it will go. As you can see, like here's last week. So, and I forget why it's there. Oh, because I couldn't upload because I use, I think, a Zoom recording. Again, I've used everything. But as you can see, and you can label them. And then if I wanted to share it, I would just click here. And if I go to share, I can get a link, and I need to publish it to either unlisted or published. Published means anyone who's on MediaSpace could see it. Unlisted means if we have a link. If you keep it private, no one can see it but you. So if you have any more questions about that, please, please, please let me know. But I hope that's kind of helpful. Some different tools, and I like to give you free tools, especially if you're not spending a ton of time making videos. So anyways, happy week 7, 2 weeks to go. I'm trying to remember if anyone's finished and they're graduating. So I will go back and look so I can make sure to congratulate anyone next week, and I will see you all later.